When Julia was preparing to say a final goodbye to her beloved dog Thor, with tears filling her eyes, she was surprised by an unexpected gesture. He wrapped his paws around her waist in a final embrace. The veterinarian, watching the emotional scene, hesitated before administering the final injection. Moments later, he spoke words that echoed in the air, leaving Julia stunned and unable to believe what she was hearing. Thor had come into Julia's life on her 16th birthday as a surprise gift from her mother to mark a new chapter in her life. At that time, she had no idea of the impact that little puppy would have on her existence. In the early months, Thor was pure energy, following Julia everywhere. During her college years, he became her greatest comfort on long nights of study, always lying by her side, resting his head on her lap, as if he understood that his mere presence calmed her. On the day of her graduation, Thor was there too, eagerly waiting for her at the door of their home. He had been present at every important moment of her life. When Julia went through a painful breakup, it was Thor who helped her not to fall into despair, refusing to leave her alone on the nights she cried in silence. Now, as she drove silently to the veterinary clinic, Julia felt the weight of the farewell pressing on her heart. She couldn't imagine her life without Thor, but the harsh reality was setting in. He was suffering. The last few weeks had been an emotional roller coaster, and the hope she had felt when the vet suggested one more week of observation had completely disappeared. Upon arriving at the clinic, she took a deep breath and got out of the car with Thor, who was calm, as if he too knew that the end was near. His movements were slow, and the stiffness in his legs was evident with every step. The clinic assistant, with a sad smile, led them to the exam room, where the vet greeted them with a serious expression and got straight to the point. "I'm sorry, Julia. After consulting with other specialists, we've concluded that Thor is facing a degenerative condition that affects his mobility and causes muscle weakness. The rapid progression of the disease indicates that he is in constant pain, and the treatments we tried have had no effect." With sorrow in his voice, he continued, "We've reached a point where his quality of life is severely compromised, and we can no longer assure that he can live pain-free." Julia bit her lip, trying to hold back the tears. She knew the vet was right. Thor was no longer the same, and euthanasia seemed to be the only way to free him from his suffering. With a heavy heart, she understood that this was the only decision she could make to ease his pain. The hope Julia had felt during the extra week the vet had granted her completely faded. Not wanting to prolong Thor's suffering, she made the painful decision to authorize the euthanasia. After signing the papers and exchanging a few words, they both went to the procedure room. Thor, lying on a soft cushion, received Julia's caresses as she whispered goodbye. However, what seemed to be their final farewell was unexpectedly interrupted when Thor wrapped his paws around her waist in an embrace. The vet, already prepared to administer the injection, stopped upon noticing the gesture. Something seemed different, and he hesitated. Looking at Thor, and then at Julia, he murmured with uncertainty, "Are we making a mistake?" His hand trembled slightly. Suddenly, the door of the room burst open, and the assistant rushed in, visibly shaken, holding a piece of paper in her hand. "Wait," she cried urgently. Everyone froze, waiting for an explanation. She handed the document to the vet, who read it quickly. "This could be the answer we were waiting for," he said, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. The atmosphere, once filled with despair, shifted, and new hope began to emerge. Could Thor have a second chance? They gathered around a laptop and opened an email sent by Dr. Marcos, a renowned veterinarian. The email described a condition different from the one they had diagnosed. Julia listened intently, feeling hope growing inside her. "We need to run more tests," the vet explained, already discussing the possibilities of the new diagnosis. However, there was an obstacle. Dr. Marcos was in Portugal, across the ocean. Julia's heart raced as she considered this new possibility. But she soon realized the reality: traveling to Portugal would not be easy. Still, the idea of saving Thor made any difficulty seem surmountable. If there's a chance, we have to try, Julia declared, determined. The vet assured her that Thor was fit to travel and prescribed the necessary medication. He's strong enough, the vet assured, handing Julia a detailed care plan for the trip. With a mix of anxiety and excitement, Julia took the medications and began organizing the next steps of this unexpected journey. Julia felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, but also immense gratitude. She was about to embark on an important adventure to save Thor, and the next destination was Portugal. The following day at the airport during the flight, Julia stayed awake while Thor slept peacefully beside her. Upon arriving in Portugal, they rented a car and headed straight to Dr. Marcos's clinic. When they arrived, at that moment, Julia realized that despite the uncertainty, they had made the right decision. In the exam room, Marcos, with a meticulous approach, reviewed the previous diagnosis and suggested new tests for Thor. The possibility of a less severe condition than they had feared sparked fragile hope. Time seemed to pass slowly in the clinic's waiting room, where the tension only grew. After a while, Marcos returned with a serious expression, informing them that the test results were taking longer than expected. Then the sound of the examination machine finally stopped, and Marcos went to retrieve the results. The revelation brought a wave of relief. The anxiety that had accompanied them throughout the journey was replaced by renewed hope. The misdiagnosis had pushed them to the limit, but now, with new information, Thor's future seemed much brighter. Julia couldn't hold back her tears, this time of happiness. She hugged Marcos with gratitude and then knelt beside Thor, wrapping him in deep love and relief. What once seemed like the end had turned into a new beginning. The clinic, once a place of uncertainty and sadness, became a space of hope and celebration. Thor's journey, which had almost ended in farewell, now had a new chance. What did you think of this story? Give it a like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.